everyone and welcome to Dueling with Downton, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 3 Egyptian god cards. Obelisk the Tormentor, Slifer the Sky Dragon, and of course the Winged Dragon of Ra. But we're going to be taking a look and see how these god cards would fare within the Rush Dueling format. Taking a look at each card's pros and cons while in Rush Duels. So this video will of course be somewhat opinionative, as I'll be giving you my thoughts and opinions on who I believe out of these 3 cards would be best suited for the Rush Dueling game. So if anything I say you disagree with or agree with, of course let me know your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this topic at hand. So then, getting the cards onto the field. This process would be made a lot easier within the Rush Dueling format, as instead of always drawing 1 card per turn, within Rush Duels, you are able to draw any number of cards as long as your hand does not go over 5 cards. So if you have 0 cards within your hand, you can essentially draw 5 cards, making your hand a total of 5. If you have 2 cards at the start of your turn, then you can only draw a maximum of 3 cards. So you get 5 in total. You get the idea. So then, meeting the requirements of having 3 monsters on the field as a tribute for the god cards would be a lot easier to achieve. So theoretically, you'll need to draw 3 level 4 or lower monsters, which if you're running the god cards as like your main ace monster within the deck, then you're likely going to have a deck built around having low level monsters, and level 5 plus monsters aren't going to be very heavily present within that deck process. The 4th card that you need to draw, of course, is your Egyptian god card. And the 5th card is almost irrelevant, but could be useful for some skills later on. We'll get more on that in a minute though. Now then, starting off this video, let's take a look at the god cards themselves, and of course their pros and cons within Rush Dueling. Starting off with Obelisk the Tormentor. This godly beast stands at 4,000 attack points, with a solid defense stat again of 4,000. So right off the bat, we have a card with crazy high attack and defense values, which will be trouble for most ace monsters within 7s and Rush Duels at the moment to overcome. The only things that have higher or equivalent attack base value or base attack value are maximums. So cards like 7th Road Magician, cards like Dragiers and Primarina Gitana, those monsters are going to need some support and some boost in order to overcome Obelisk's 4,000 attack and defense. Okay, so let's take a look at Obelisk the Tormentor's effects and see how they would be useful within Rush Dueling. Of course, we start off with the classic requires 3 tributes to normal summon. This monster cannot be normal set. This card, normal summon, cannot be negated. When normal summoned, cards and effects cannot be activated. Neither player can target this card with a card effect. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this card was special summoned, send it to the graveyard. You contribute 2 monsters to destroy all monsters on your opponent's side of the field. This card cannot declare an attack the turn that this effect is activated. So then, this effect is massive, as you can freely summon it if the requirements are met, and effects of other cards or monsters can't activate to negate it, which is really powerful in of itself already. Plus, the skill of tributing 2 monsters in order to destroy all of your opponent's monsters on your opponent's side of the field is another strong, powerful ability. However, that strong skill can also be a slight weakness. Going back to how you would summon this monster. Basically, on the turn you first summon Obelisk, you would already use up 3 cards in your hand, all being monsters below level 4 or level 4, so you can tribute them. Okay, your 4th card is used up by basically being Obelisk the Tormentor, so you're down to 1 card in your hand. You can't then summon 2 monsters to activate Obelisk's effect of tributing 2 monsters to destroy all of your opponent's monsters on the field. Therefore, you have to wait until your next turn when you draw more cards, potentially drawing more monster cards, in order to activate and get full value out of Obelisk's effect here. Now, of course, the way around that, of course, would be to have your last card be something like Pot of Greed. Because what does Pot of Greed do? lets you draw 2 cards. Or have a monster that when you summon it, you can use its effect and you can special summon another monster or draw another card and hope it's a monster. So there are ways around this, but it's not very likely. Then again, the 4000 base attack value for Obelisk the Tormentor is actually really useful in of itself and strong. So you might not even need to use Obelisk's ability unless you just simply want to flex on your own opponent. You can deal massive damage with 4000 attack to pretty much any ace monster within the Rush Dueling format at the moment, because only things that come near or equal are maximums. Now next up, let's talk about the Winged Dragon of Ra. And a piece of information I left out earlier on is I will not be looking at support cards, just looking at the god cards themselves. So things like the Sphere of the Winged Dragon of Ra, I'm not going to include. But with that being said, the Winged Dragon of Ra, it kind of fits Roman's playstyle to some degree, as it offers up your life points for power. So if any of our main 4 protagonists actually ever use a god card, I want to see Roman use Ra. This is not likely to happen, like nearly impossible, but it'll still be something fun to see nevertheless. Okay then, so let's do the same and look at the effects of Ra. This card requires 3 tributes to normal summon. It cannot be normal set. This card's normal summon cannot be negated. When normal summoned, other cards and effects cannot be activated. When this card is normal summoned though, you can pay life points so that you only have 100 left. This card then gains attack and defense value equal to the amount of life points that you pay. You can pay 100 life points and then target one monster on the field and destroy that target. Wow, this is actually really powerful, because Rush Dueling format allows you to start off with 8,000 life points. I know in the anime they only start off with 4,000, but looking at the actual rulebook and guidelines for Rush Dueling, you start off with 8,000. This means that if you want to use all of your life points to activate Ra's effect, you can give Ra a whopping 7,900 attack. That's of course if you haven't lost life points or you manage to regain them by the time you summoned Ra, of course. But this would allow you to obliterate and blow your opponent away with overwhelming power. You could also give Ra just 6,800 attack points and then use 1,000 life points to destroy a monster that your opponent is using, clearing a path to victory with a direct attack. And again, unless your opponent is at 8,000 life points, which by that point, what you're doing. So looking at it from a kind of functional standpoint, Ra has many ways that you can utilize its skills and abilities to help you in a tight situation or just to help you OTK your opponent, kind of. Because the reason why I say kind of is you could summon Ra, get as maximum of life attack points as you can by sacrificing all your life points, use your last card to summon a monster if it happens to be one, and of course you can just attack with the monster first, finish it off with Ra, bish bash bosh, you're done. But with that being said, this might actually be a big advantage, but it's also one of its biggest weaknesses. If your life points are low, then your attack points are going to be low as well. So if you lower yourself too much, or your opponent manages to whittle you down, using Ra is not going to be useful. And for some miracle, if your opponent survives the turn, that you drop yourself down to 100 life points, like maybe they use like negate attack or something, then it opens up the opportunity for your opponent to beat you using burn damage. So using Ra is more of a final move. You use Ra to finish off your opponent as quickly and as hard as possible, winning you the match. That's the way I would use it if I was using it in Rush Duels, but nevertheless it's still very easy to summon and it's very powerful if you can utilize it at the correct time and situation. Now then, for the final card on this list, my favourite Egyptian god, Slifer the Sky Dragon. However, this god card is arguably the riskiest card to use, out of the Egyptian gods when using it in rush duels, as it requires a lot of skillful plays, saving it during your opponent's turn, as it's not going to be very useful when you first summon the card itself. So its effect requires 3 tributes to normal summon, cannot be normal set. This card's normal summon cannot be negated. When normal summoned, cards and effects cannot be activated. Once per turn during your end phase, if this card was special summoned, send it to the graveyard. This card gains 1000 attack and defense points for every card in your hand. If a monster is normal summoned or special summoned from your opponent's side of the field in attack position, then that monster loses 2000 attack points, or monsters. So if your opponent summons 2 monsters, they both lose 2000 attack points. And as an added bonus, if the monster's attack value is dropped to 0, destroy that monster. So again, one last time, summoning the monster should be relatively easy, but it does deplete your hand, leaving you with 1 card, making Slifer's attack point value 1000 attack and 1000 defense. This is very easy to basically beat if your opponent survives a turn and basically has to go up against Slifer because you can't draw cards into your next turn. Plus, if you are attacking your opponent and your opponent has a card already on the field in attack position, with 1000 attack points you can't really do any damage to them. So it's not going to be very effective there. You're going to need to basically be able to keep Slifer on the field until you're able to have another turn, draw 5 cards, giving it 5000 attack. Or, draw 4 cards, making your hand 5. That's what I meant to say. Now, the only way that Slifer can be useful on the first turn is, again, if you have Pot of Greed as your last card, or anything that allows you to draw multiple cards. Because using Pot of Greed obviously will let you draw 2 cards, so Slifer's attack value increases to 2000, which would be awesome. However, if you have a trap card that will allow you to survive until the next turn, then use it. Yes, Slifer becomes 0 attack and 0 defense, but it will allow you to survive and then get more cards next turn and be ready and well prepared. But then again, if your opponent has an empty field, your life becomes a lot easier as a Slifer the Sky Dragon user, as the second skill lowers your opponent's monsters, and their attack value drops by 2000, plus destroying the monster if they reach 0. This skill is pretty busted, because when you can summon multiple monsters to the field in rush duels, like you can summon 3 at once, but if all 3 of those monsters have less than 2000 attack, then all 3 of those monsters are going to be destroyed. So the only way your opponent can actually realistically put a monster on the field, if their field is empty, at the start of their turn, is by basically being able to special summon a monster with over 2000 attack. Now, of course, if you're in a situation where Slifer is 1000 attack, because you don't use the card that's in your hand, your opponent manages to somehow summon like a 7's Road Magician, then that of course would drop 7's Road down to 100 attack. Elemental Road, 7 Road Magician skill, could increase it over 1000 and Slifer's destroyed. So that's where the risk comes in here. And again, another exception to the rule of Slifer's second skill by depleting your opponent's monsters by 2000 is of course maximums. You don't need to play tribute to summon a maximum monster. You just need to have the correct 3 cards. And if your opponent summons a maximum, that's at 4000, drop it down to 2000, still pretty formidable at 2000 attack, regardless of whether or not, you're able to survive the attack or not, really. So in conclusion, Slifer is all about timing, making sure you can survive your opponent's turn so you can have another turn and of course gain that 5000 attack value by drawing 5 cards, attacking, making the risk worth it. It's only if you're able to survive that risk and live to fight another turn. Now then, in conclusion, in my own personal opinion, as someone just giving you a video on the internet, I think the best Egyptian god card purely on his own within a Rush Dueling format is the Winged Dragon of Ra, as it's the only god card that can basically win you the game as soon as it's put onto the field. You don't also need to wait one turn to fully utilize its skills properly. You can set your deck up in a way that gives you more life points, thus giving Ra more attack points. So in that regard, Ra can become pretty powerful and strong just on his own. You can theoretically OTK your opponent if the turn before you summon Ra, you increase your life points by using like blue medicine or something similar. Now in terms of second place, I would say Obelisk the Tormentor because it's the easiest to use and you can win without using its skill. It may only take you a couple of turns though, depending on what your opponent sets up as their line of defense. Slifer unfortunately is in last place on this list as the risk is just too risky. You're going to have to try really hard to keep it on the field, which you can do set up before you summon it, like the turn before, which makes it a lot easier, but at the same time, just having 5,000 even on the turn at its best value is okay, but it's not the best. Its secondary skill in destroying your opponent's monsters is of course a really good positive skill to have, but again, I think the risk outweighs the reward. But you'll have to let me know your thoughts and opinions on that. Of course, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this topic itself. Let me know who you think the best Egyptian god card would be if they came to the Rush Dueling format. But with that being said, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hit that like button, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And of course, I'll see you next time. Alligator, madane, goodbye. Oh, have a great day.